On September 10th, 2011, the Cup Series stars rolled into Richmond, Virginia for the regular season finale. The 2011 Wonderful Pistachios 400 would set the chase, or as it's known now, the playoff field. It was the first time NASCAR was using its new and simplified point system. The winner of each race would earn 43 points, second would earn 42, and so on down to 43rd, who would receive 1 point. There was also a winning bonus of 3 points, 1 bonus point for leading a single lap, and 1 point for leading the most laps. It kept things easier to follow and kept things closer at the top of the standings. Coming into the race, it was Jimmie Johnson leading the points, followed by Kyle Busch, Carl Edwards, Matt Kenseth, and Jeff Gordon, all separated by just 40 points. Tony Stewart and Dale Earnhardt Jr. were both just over 20 points safe from the cutoff line. If they fell outside of the top 10 in points, they were out of the chase. As far as the chase went, the top 10 drivers in the point standings would make the chase, plus 2 other drivers in the top 20 in points with the most wins. These 2 drivers were called the wild cards. They would fill the 11th and 12th spaces in the chase. So that's enough points talk. Let's go ahead and set the scene for the race. David Rudiman and Jamie McMurray would start on the front row. They didn't have a shot at the playoffs, even with a win. Jimmie Johnson, 5-time defending champion, points leader, and race favorite, was rolling off in P3 alongside teammate Mark Martin. As you can tell, there were a lot of patriotic schemes littered throughout the field, as the race was the day before the 10th year after 9/11.
At the end of 400 laps tonight in Richmond, the green flag is out.
Jamie McMurray grabbed the early lead. But the first yellow flag of the day would come on lap 3, and this would set the tone for the day.
7th and 8th places, and trouble already. Turn 4, Andy Lally in the 71 car is in the wall. Caution flag is out.
Andy Lally got turned in turn 4 with some contact from Mike Bliss. In 2011, Lally started 30 races. He managed only 1 top 20 finish the entire season, a 19th at Talladega. Although damaged, Lally would return to the race, but finish 40 laps down. Jamie McMurray led on the restart, but quickly the caution was out once again.
A few years back when trouble there, Boyer spinning around in turn 4. And trouble behind him. About a half a dozen cars going to pile up in the aftermath.
88 car's got a little damage in the front. Quite a bit, actually.
Yes, sir.
Clint Bowyer, who was in a must-win situation, lost control of his car. Cars in the back couldn't slow down and piled in. So the wreck came in at an awkward time, as laps 9 through 11 were silent for the remembrance of 9/11. It is really cool to see the fans united with an American flag in hand, but awkward because of the big one that just happened. The broadcast just sat silent for a few minutes while cars rolled around under yellow, and damaged cars were being worked on, and we didn't get any information or replays of the wreck. But after the silence, we see that Bowyer got loose under Rudiman, and some cars in the back just did not slow down while others did. Dale Earnhardt Jr., Marcos Ambrose, and others sort of bulldozed through other cars that were indeed slowing down. Bowyer, who was setting up to be in a position to win, got some damage after Jr. T-boned him. Scott Speed got the worst of it, as he was the only one to retire from the race en route to a last place finish. On the restart, Johnson got around McMurray, who led the opening 19 laps. Kevin Harvick, who started 7th, was already up to 3rd and appeared to have one of the fastest cars early on. Then, just a handful of laps later, we had our 3rd caution of the day in the first 30 laps.
In the garage area as well after damage from the first caution. And trouble turn 2. That's Casey Kane. And we're under the yellow for a 3rd time.
This was a big break for Kurt Busch, who had a suspected left rear tire going down. There wasn't a replay of this wreck, so we'll just skip to the restart on lap 33 when Jimmie Johnson led the field. Martin Truex Jr., who technically could have gotten in with a win and a prayer, had a flat tire, but was saved by yet another caution, the 4th of the day.
Around off turn 2.
We got wrecked.
I think if we could come up with I think if we came up with a theme for this night, it's that all those guys with that shot at getting into the championship,
In trouble.
they're all in trouble in the early going.
With this, Denny Hamlin was back on the lead lap. So clearly, Ambrose was turned by Dale Earnhardt Jr., who radioed that it was time to go and that he didn't have time to sit around and wait, even though it was just like lap 30. Jr. had a rough start to the race, a race he needed to do good in to get into the chase. He was close to falling outside of the top 10 in points and didn't have a win to fall back on. So maybe this is why this race was so chaotic. The new point system bunched everyone up more than before, and the wild card chase positions meant that with a little bit of help, people who won could sneak into the chase. You would think the race would kind of get into a groove here, but
Johnson, trouble in turn 4. Casey Kane with a hard hit again.
That was with his teammate, Brian Vickers.
after a 9-lap green flag run, the longest of the day up to this point, there was another yellow flag after Marcos Ambrose assassinated both Red Bull cars. It was Casey Kane's second hard hit of the day and Ambrose's third incident. Then, under yellow, Vickers showed his displeasure by turning into Ambrose. Vickers, as a result, was sent to the garage by NASCAR. We saw a lot of different strategies on pit road, cars taking different amount of fuel and tires, then 6 cars who stayed on the track. The dominant car of the day, Jimmy Johnson, was buried way back to 10th place on the restart.
Been challenged immediately by Kurt Busch for the race lead.
Kurt Busch got all 4 tires pumped up now. He's ready to go.
And then things would finally settle down for a bit. Kyle Busch had a bad vibration about 10 laps after the restart, then Kevin Harvick on fresh tires flew past Matt Kenseth for the lead. By lap 115, Kevin Harvick was still leading, but Juan Pablo Montoya was closing in on him and showed that he had the fastest car on the long run. But just a couple of laps after this, Mike Bliss would be involved in his second wreck of the day. This one was considerably worse, as he lost a right front tire and went hard into the wall. This wreck would prove to be terminal for the 32 car. Not much change for the restart. Harvick led Juan Pablo Montoya and Jimmy Johnson, followed by Clint Bowyer, who needed to win and was recovering remarkably considering his early race damage. After about 30 laps of green flag running, the 7th caution of the day came out.
Dale Jr. needed that caution.
That's Travis Kvapil.
Jr. had the leader bearing down on him to put him down 2 laps.
Travis Kvapil was wrecked, and he had some help.
That's at the
shot.
start-finish line.
Well, let's see.
That Junior took exception to that.
Yeah, what do you think? Looks like payback to me.
Once again, Dale Earnhardt Jr. had a car spin off his nose after some more retaliation. Look at Jr.'s nose here. It's just destroyed. Obviously just a painful day for the guy who needed to just bring it home in one piece in a decent position. Jr. was the first car 1 lap down, but because he caused the wreck, he did not get the free pass to get his lap back. During pit stops, Greg Biffle and Carl Edwards took 2 tires to gain control of the race. The pair would quickly be passed by Harvick as another yellow flew for a spin by Landon Castle.
And the caution flag is out.
Another restart on lap 169, followed by another quick yellow just 3 laps later.
Regan Smith and Paul Menard. Smith was actually the secondary incident. There was contact in the pack that sent Menard pretty hard into the outside wall at the right front.
This time, Regan Smith and Paul Menard brought it out. Menard got the worst of it in a really odd-looking incident. Kevin Harvick led on the restart. A few laps later, we see Kurt Busch and Jimmy Johnson having quite the duel for 4th when this happened.
But he says the car is loose in and loose off, and that's been the first time all night that they've really felt like that's been a handling issue that's detrimental to him, and he gets caught in the back end and into the wall.
Johnson in trouble. Montoya also goes around. Caution number 10.
Johnson went around, and Busch unfortunately collected Montoya in the process. By looking at the replay, it looks like Kurt Busch just locked up the front tires and got into Johnson. The two had a pretty heated battle late at Pocono just a couple of races prior, and this probably just added fuel to the fire. But that's probably where that rivalry ends. Harvick continued to lead on the restart, ahead of Edwards and Bowyer. Nobody else was as consistent as Harvick. He was dominating. Clint was up in the top 5 all day, but seemed to be just slower than Harvick. Now we can take a deep breath as the race finally reached the halfway point. A long green flag stretch of 56 laps would be stopped after we got another retaliation attempt during green flag pit stops.
Busch, who's gone around, brought the caution flag out.
Got another car. Jimmy Johnson.
Oh, well.
Huh.
Imagine that.
Jimmy really drove it in there, and unfortunately for him, he got the worst of it. Busch kept it off the wall, while Jimmy Johnson slammed into it. Johnson was locked into the chase, so this race was already kind of a lost cause. Now, this was during green flag pit stops, as I just mentioned, and it shuffled up the field. It cycled Carl Edwards to the lead, and the dominant 29 machine of Harvick back outside the top 15. Bowyer and Kyle Busch were now outside of the top 20. Here, Stephen Light made headlines running just outside of the top 10 in his second start. Biffle, Keselowski, and David Reagan were running as high as they had all day in the top 5, and Juan Pablo Montoya was finally back inside the top 10. On lap 286, the 12th caution of the day came out for Jeff Burton, followed by the restart. Edwards led, but Harvick was coming. He was just outside the top 5, and making aggressive moves to get back to the front. Just 7 laps after this restart, the yellow was back out for Ambrose, his 4th incident of the day.
Dodge is really out here. Ambrose trouble again. Off of 2.
Off of 2. Caution flag is out.
Yellow's out. We got the leader into 1 here. Turn around. Got 1 more coming. All right. Come on.
Then Logano's car decided to blow up. Dave Blaney got into the back of Ambrose, that sent him around. After a quick restart, Lightning Castle spun on the front stretch for the second time, but this time, no yellow flew. However, the green flag was not out for much longer, as just 6 laps later, Bowyer and David Rudiman got together to bring out the 14th yellow of the day on lap 308. And by the replay, it looks like more retaliation. Maybe it was from the early big one on lap 8, but I'm not sure. The commentators were defending Bowyer, saying he just locked up or something, but it looks more like retaliation to me. Maybe there was something that we didn't see. Under yellow, all of the leaders came down pit road, except the leader, Carl Edwards. Edwards led the field to green, but Harvick, on fresh tires, made quick work of a lot of drivers, and then passed Edwards in less than a lap and a half. Harvick would go on to lead the next 65 laps. The victory was definitely in his hands. That was until Jeff Gordon caught Harvick, and was all over his bumper for nearly a dozen laps. Jeff Gordon finally got by Harvick with just 23 laps to go. The 24 team had just been working on his car all day long. In the first 300 laps of the race, we didn't see the speed out of the 24 car at all. During this stretch of the race, it was kind of wild because the lap cars were faster than the leaders for the most part. Just how strategy played out, the leaders were on old tires, and the back markers had to pit under this green flag stretch, meaning that they had newer and fresher tires. But conveniently for Harvick, just 6 laps after Gordon completed the pass, Harvick's teammate Paul Menard had an issue, and the 15th and final caution of the day came out. This put the race completely into the hands of the pit crews, and Harvick came out on top, followed by Gordon in second. There was no replay of the Paul Menard caution, which is kind of sketchy. There are a lot of people that believe Menard purposely brought out the yellow to give his teammate Harvick a shot at the win. I'll just say that Menard had an itchy arm 2 years before it was cool. Anyway, final restart time. Just a dozen laps to go. Harvick, Gordon, Edwards, and Kyle Busch. Who would end up on top? Edwards tried to make a move into turn 1, but Harvick just shot out of a cannon. Nobody, including Jeff Gordon, could match Harvick's short run pace. Carl Edwards, in the last couple of laps, actually caught Harvick, but the lapped car of Marcos Ambrose on the last lap kind of ruined the finish. Harvick collected his 4th win of the season. As a result, he would be the points leader at the start of the chase the following week. Unfortunately for Harvick, after leading the points for the next month, he had a terrible 32nd place finish at Talladega that knocked him out of championship contention. Darren Hart Jr. and Tony Stewart barely made it into the chase. Tony, in an epic duel with Carl Edwards, would go on to win the championship and win 5 of the last 10 races of the season. So that does it for the 2011 Wonderful Pistachios 400. I hope you guys did enjoy. This race really had it all. It's one of my favorite of all time. If you haven't watched it in its entirety, I definitely recommend you do that. It was an instant classic and is just an iconic race. crazy to think that this happened over 12 years ago. Anyway guys, I hope you did enjoy. If you did, make sure you leave a like and subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.